Thank you. Well, let me introduce our speaker for today, Dato Munirah Looi. She's the founder and CEO of Brand International, an experienced CX and digital transformation strategist, operational excellence management, and human performance improvement practitioner for the past 30 years, consulted in areas of customer experience and organizational development and digitizational assignments, both locally and overseas, and had worked extensively throughout Asia and the United States. She got more than 15 years of experience in banking and financial sector, awarded as the top 10 best inspiring CEO of 2020 by Industry Era, and was the top 3 nominee for the prestigious EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award 2018, Malaysia. She received the Women Leadership Award for Business Process Outsourcing Sector in 2018. Top 30 Women Achievers and Leaders, Malaysia 2017. The Women Leadership Achievement Award at the WWLCA, World Women Leadership Congress and Award 2015. And receiver of inaugural Malaysian Woman of Excellence Award in 2014. So, ladies and gentlemen, we give you Dato Munirah Looi.
Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Um, Glad that I have some airtime earlier, so we're gonna go very quickly get into the presentation. Let me just very quickly share my slides. But before I do that, I would like to thank Rotary Club District 3300 for extending this invite for me to actually share my experiences. I certainly hope that when we go through the 45 minutes presentation, you have a very good understanding essentially of what it takes for you to up your game in as far as creating a differentiation and become successful, yeah, in what you do. So let me jump very quickly, go into the slides of my presentation. As shared, um, the title of the program or the title of the session is very much around personal branding. And I think the key words that essentially we would like to focus on in today's presentation, it's around, is there a difference between attitude and aptitude? Besides the spelling. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about these two component and what will essentially create our differentiation. So in order for us to become more competitive in the marketplace. So a quick introduction of myself, beyond what was introduced. I'm just a very ordinary person, a human being. I'm very much a dutiful wife, a mother of 3 grown-up adults, boys. And I'm also a daughter-in-law. I love to travel a lot. I'm an educator as well as a mentor. Millie, hear this. I'm a coffee lover. And you'll probably also see that a lot of the awards that I've won has a lot to do with advocating the women agenda. All right. And essentially what I do here is really to help promote women in the workforce. Moving from just working in the workforce, keeping them into the workforce, and actually breaking the glass ceiling, all right, to achieve whatever you have aspired to achieve in your personal life. So I do a lot of those on my own, and work very closely with a lot of women associations, both locally and globally, to promote this agenda of diversity. All right. So let's get straight into understanding a little bit about what is personal branding, what essentially it is all about. And I'm going to just give you a very quick definition from Wikipedia. where we talked about personal branding is primarily around, it is a conscious as well as an intentional effort by ourselves to create and influence the public perception. It is around how people perceive you, and if you want people to perceive you in a very favorable manner, then the things that you do, the things that you exhibit, must actually match with that image that you're trying to project. So the idea really is, it is a conscious and intentional efforts. That means you need to put efforts, you need to put thinking and thoughts into, how do you want to create the you, all right? How do you want to brand yourself so that you will be, you elevate yourself to become more credible, you become more differentiated, um, from other people. And I think that's very important if you're really talking about employability, right? Because in today's market, you find that, it is an employer market, all right? So which means that employers now have many choices, all right? Before COVID came in, obviously, it was different because that time, finding good talents, it's very difficult, and employers typically will only will get or employ people that is what's available. But in today's context, just a span of the last 9 months, you find that there's ample supply of workforce, all right? People already with experience, lots of experience, who are essentially being retrenched. Now we also have on an average about 300,000 of fresh graduates that's come in, that is coming out into the workforce as well. So you find that competition, essentially, it's getting very intense. So what will be, make you differentiated? All right. So this is where, how do we present ourselves so that we will be able to up the game, all right, in order for us to advance in our career, and actually increase our circle of influence, and more importantly, and have a larger impact on people, impact on individuals, and who you want to impact in this case here. So that's really personal branding itself. And we says that it is a conscious effort, and it is important. A lot of people don't put a lot of focus on this, but you find that personal branding, it's important. You need to put a lot of efforts into it, and there are a couple of key things, reasons why personal branding is important. But I would just point three major things which I find personally for myself, why I embark on this particular journey. Now, the first thing that I found in doing personal branding is that, when you have a personal brand, it gives you a better sense of self-worth. All right, you feel good about yourself. It gives you a lot of confidence. All right, so it is very important that it starts with envisioning what brand you how do you want to brand yourself, and then articulate, come up with plans and strategies to actually help you to achieve that personal brand. And once you have achieved it, essentially it gives you that sense of self-worth. All right, gives you a lot of help you to build confidence. And that's really important, because when you walked into the room, in front of interviewers, what is really important is, the first thing they'll look at you is, whether you have that confidence when you walked in. All right, and that's really what personal brand, one of the key reasons why you need to invest in personal brand. Now, the other key thing that I found, which was essentially very important in why we need to cultivate a personal brand, is because it allows you to think strategically. Now, what do I mean by this? Right now, if you have a brand, something that you have brand yourself, so what really is important is we no longer become very reactive in doing things. We are not free in terms of the way that we respond, in terms of our actions, in terms of our emotions. Because everything that we do, everything that we say, in front of other people, you now have to, stop and think whether whatever I'm going to say or whatever I'm going to do, it's going to add credibility to my personal brand. All right, so that keeps us in control, that allows us to be more poised, and you do not now then only just look at that situation and ad hoc activity, but you are actually looking at that decision that you make, will have a major impact for you in the long run, in this case here. So that is really what that personal brand allows us to do. And more importantly, is because you are projecting a brand typically which is generally very positive. You find that for the third key most important thing which I found, it's that it challenges you as an individual to deliver more. All right, because you have to live to that brand. All right, and as such, you want to go the extra mile to ensure that you are consistently delivering the brand that you want to project, in this case here. So in essence, you find that if we develop our personal brand, it challenges us to become a much more better being. All right, when we are faced with, the workforce, when we are faced with people that we interact with, in this case here. All right. So that's really what I see as personal branding. And a lot of people do focus personal branding as, because you're talking about perceptions, right? So a lot of people think that perception means it's dressing. It's about how you dress. As long as you dress well, you have huge lots of makeup, then that is what branding is all about. Now, from my perspective, when we talk about personal branding, what is really important is that it has to be inside out approach. Inside out approach means it's really about what is you. All right, what represents you. That is really important, and that will bring us very nicely to that discussion shortly around what we mean by attitude as well as aptitude, in this case here. All right, so very quickly, um, let me just summarize the personal branding context. It is important to develop your own personal brand. You are the brand, and the purpose of this is to allow you to stand out from the rest of the other uh, uh, people out that you have to compete, to get what you want. So, riding on this, like I've said, I would like to then steer the discussions to not just looking at the physical presence of an individual, but I want to look at the inward, which is the internal aspects of that individual. And I would like to share this quote, and I would like you to perhaps unmute yourself, if you would like to respond to this little phrase. I borrowed it from Stephen Covey, and I would like to hear some thoughts about, what do you get out of this? All right. Now, Stephen Covey says this, I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. Now, what is your understanding of this? Anybody want to care to try this? You can share your views. What do you think this means from your perspective? Anybody?
Can I say something, Dato? I think he means to say it's more of your decisions is what basically leads you to the person you become. So you have to become a proactive person in creating your future, which basically Aristotle said something similar, I believe, which is
Mm,
we are what we repeatedly do.
right.
Excellence, therefore, is not a act but a habit.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. And thanks very much for the for it's very nicely articulated and shared. All right. It's so anybody else want to say anything or want to share anything else? Any other comments?
Um, we are masters of our own fate. Sorry, our own outcome.
Right.
We control the outcome of what we want.
Exactly, right? So it's really a function of, when we say that, oh, we can't get a job, the company is we can't get promoted, because the company is no good, the manager is no good, or we give a lot of excuses, all right? And that's really what circumstances is. We start blaming on things that we are unable to achieve in this case here. But bearing in mind that every situation, every encounter that we make, there are decision making points, right? So whether you make a decision uh, or you don't make a decision. So when you don't make a decision, you just wait lah. All right. So you wait and nothing's going to happen, right? But if someone dare to make a decision, now whether it's right or wrong, it's still a decision, right? So if it's a wrong decision, what's going to happen? It allows you to learn from that experience, and that creates or help you to actually enhance your wisdom about a particular situation itself. All right. So really what we are saying is that, we have to, across throughout our journey in our lives, we do have to make decisions, and these decisions are important. We must dare and we must be bold in making decisions, all right, and not have that mindset of entitlement. Oh, it's mine, because I am a fresh graduate, because I have 6 distinction, or I have full A's, therefore I'm entitled to this job. Or if I get this job, therefore I'm entitled to a 5,000 ringgit salary. All right. So you need to take away that mindset of entitlement, because at the end of the day, you need to kind of develop that mindset that I have to gain experiences first. Nothing, don't leave everything by chance, because you need to work towards getting what you want in this case. So all this requires efforts, all this requires experiences. All right. So thank you very much for sharing. And I just want to just bring 3 points around what has been shared in the earlier slide is this, right? So where you start out as a graduate will not be where you finish. Okay. And that's something that you need to appreciate and understand. Being a graduate only gives you that leverage, to be able to enter into a job which is primary executive job. All right. But that doesn't mean that you getting an executive jobs will give you a by the fact that you are in the company for 10 years or 15 years, that means you can be a manager or a senior manager. It doesn't work that, because throughout that journey in employment, the work, the things that you do, the decisions that you make will ultimately determine whether you're going to be a vice president, whether you're going to be a director, or you're going to continue to become an executive. From the day you join until the day you retire, you're just going to be an executive. All right. So just remember this, it's that, being a graduate doesn't guarantee anything, because no matter where you start, you can make the most of almost any situations. It's all a function of the decisions that we make throughout our journey in life. Right. And that's really important, because now why I'm focusing a lot on this is because a brand is just a brand, right? But at the end of the day, is the internal inside you has to be clear. You have to internalize what is it that you want about from yourself in this case here, and that's where that will give you that authenticity. All right, because we want authenticity in you, and that's really important. All right, so you will remember this, you will be selected more for your work experience, your attitude towards others and yourself, your aptitude in your field, and the willingness to go beyond what is required. And that's really something that you need to bear in mind from an employability perspective. All right. I think people like Isabel, as well as Harish, can connect to the my company, whereby typically we do not only just look at aptitude, that means your skills, but what is really important is we looked at your attitude as well. And in brand, it's interesting that we hire for attitude and then we train for aptitude. That's a big difference. Now, if you have the right attitude, okay, then uh, skills is trainable. But if you don't have the right attitude, then you find that it's very difficult to unlearn and train the person in this case here. All right. So that's why we put a lot of focus on attitude versus aptitude in this case. Aptitude, the very fact that you're a graduate, you already have the technical know-how, you already have the skills to do the job. But remember, as an employer, we do not just look at the very fact that you have just the skills, or the what we call you're a graduate in economics, you're a graduate in banking and finance. But what is really important is your outlook in life. How do you focus, and how do you see things in life? And that's really important. All right. So that leads us to this discussions around what is attitude and what is aptitude. Okay. I'm going to very quickly, I've already introduced a little bit, but as we've said, aptitude is primary is measuring the person's ability to acquire new skills. It is a reflection of the person's intellectual ability to learn via experiences. All right. So it's really about learning. It's about skills development. But on the other hand, when we talked about attitude, it is actually a result of one's opinions and beliefs concerning a person or a topic. So this is something that is inside you, all right? And this is where how you see it's really about attitude is a function of how you see things, how do you look at situations, and when you look at the situations, how do you perceive that situation? All right. So if you perceive the situation as something which is positive, what's going to happen? You're going to, when you feel something, when you think is something positive, you will feel good about it. When you feel good about something, your actions becomes positive. Do you follow what I'm trying to say here? All right. So when it becomes positive, then your outcome becomes positive. All right. But then there are times where when we perceive a situation, when we looked at a situation, we perceived it and we looked at it as very negative. All right. We think that we can't do this. All right. Oh, why my manager is giving me so much work? Why don't give it to somebody else to do the job? So when we start thinking that, oh, why my boss is giving me all this? Why the boss? Is it because my boss don't like me? All right. Or is it my boss is trying to punish me, for example? Or is my boss trying to victimize me because he doesn't like my look, for example? So when we start allowing the negative thoughts to come into our minds, what's going to happen now is you will feel very lousy, all right, about that situation. You don't feel like taking on this assignment, but because he's the boss, I will have no choice, but I'll do it. But will you do your best? Because you feel bad about it. So your actions, it's you will not give your 100% to it. All right. And when you don't give 100% output to that particular assignment, then the outcome is that your boss is not happy. Right? So therefore, we find that it is very important for us to condition ourselves to ensure that, our self-talk, we have to continually talk to ourselves and challenge our thoughts, right? If our thoughts is negative, you have to say, hey, hold on. All right. And it is important that we need to kind of say, give it a try first. All right. Why not? So you need to be able to allow these positive thoughts to come into being itself here. So like I've said, you may have the best skills, you are very highly qualified to do the job, all right? But if your attitude towards people, your attitude towards situations are essentially generating more negative than positive, you're not going to get there because your skills will not shine, right? But if you have positive thoughts, what's going to happen now is then your skills that you have becomes amplified, all right? And that's where you create that differentiation in the marketplace itself here. So you need to have both. But if you ask me between aptitude and attitude, which is more important, we've said that like in brand, we hire for attitude and then we train for aptitude. Okay. And primarily why we have this philosophy in what we do is because, as I've shared, it is so much easier to train aptitude than attitude, right? Because attitude is like it's you already, all right? So it's very difficult to change the character of the person, right? But if you don't have the skills, I can still tell you, okay, and if you have an open mind to learn, then it's much easier for me to train you to unlearn something which is incorrect and then develop a positive attitude to learn new things in this case. So it's far much easier to connect with people who are generally more positive in as far as attitude, because typically attitude can impact overall performance. And that's really something that we want to, work towards as an individual itself here. Okay, because why? If you have the right attitude, um, you can overcome obstacles. And I'll share with you later on my entrepreneur journey. All right. And it's typically also applies to the corporate environment as well, because I typically have spent 20 years in the corporate environment. Before I started this company, my company, which is now 16 years old. All right. But, regardless whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are, working in an organization, you find that, if I have the right attitude, I can overcome a lot of obstacles. All right. So let me just very quickly recap this in terms of the difference between aptitude as well as attitude. Okay. Now, aptitude, we've said it's acquisition of skills is really knowledge, and how do you apply this knowledge into apply this knowledge and develop your skills. Okay. And it has a lot to do with loosely associated with intelligence, and it goes all the way down to looking at your competency in doing something. So it's really about skills, competencies, all right, knowledge, skills, and competencies in performing a particular task. Okay. While if you look at attitude, attitude is really a function of beliefs, as we've mentioned. All right, what do you believe in? Do you believe? Do you have a sense of entitlement, or do you believe that if I want to get to the top, I really need to earn it. I really have to work hard to get there. Then there is a two different mindset. Yeah, in as far as attitude is concerned, one is a sense of entitlement, which means is that it's going to be the position is going to be mine. All right, it's just a matter of staying on for 10 years, for example. But if you have one who has that mindset that I have to work hard, I have to earn it, I have to show that I'm capable of doing it, then you have a different mindset. Then throughout your 10 years, you will show and prove yourself, and you work beyond 100% to ensure that you're going to get there in this case here. So this has a more sustainable success than one with that mindset of entitlement. All right. So remember, this attitude, this mindset do affect your behaviors and personality. Whether you're going to just sit down and wait, or you're one person who's going to proactively, enroll yourself to e-learning, to try to learn as much as I can, being very proactive at a job, volunteering for projects, even though it's not something that I can do, but I know that if I have an open mind, I continue to ask, I continue to learn and ask questions, I'm going to get there. All right. So it's again two different mindsets and personalities itself. And you find that the more experience you get, the more positive is your attitude. So we say attitude is a result of experiences, all right, and it changes. It's very fluid, and as we've said, sometimes it has attitude can be good, can be bad, and sometimes attitude can be positive and negative. And that's really what we're saying is that, the minute you looked at something which is bad or something that is negative, you need to start challenging yourself and say, hey, hold on, is there another way of looking at this situation? All right. So it's really about, nobody can kind of tell you, because it is something that you need to engage with yourself on a regular basis. So the self-talk, it's really important. All right. So what do you put into your minds on a day-to-day basis? We always say this: your brain is like a garden. Okay. Now, when we say it's a garden, in a garden, you can continue to water your plants until it flourish with beautiful flowers. Agree? But then you also in the garden got lalang also, all right, even no water also the lalang will appear itself here. So what do you want? Do you want a beautiful garden with blooming flowers, or do you want a garden which is full of lalang in this case here? So a garden which is full of flowers, blooming flowers, it requires a lot of tender loving care, and that care comes from you. Oh, nobody else can do the watering. It is you who needs to water those plants to ensure that it continues to bloom, it continues to make you who you want to be in this case here. All right. And that's really what we mean by presence, branding and presence. When people see you, and if you have a right attitude, that represents presence, and we say presence equates to your brand, personal brand itself here. All right. So let me just very quickly share with you a little bit of my journey in terms of how I define attitude from my personal journey. And with me here, what equates, I'm actually in the process of writing this book. So you are probably the first few people who get a chance to hear this. We call this the my personal 5 P's of success, all right? Or 5 P's of, developing and defining the right positive mindset for success in every individual in this case here, all right? Now, the first thing that was very important in my journey, at least when I started after I've graduated, um, and I got myself a job in a bank as a management trainee. And it was interesting that as a management trainee, typically you go through a very stringent program, which lasts about 6 months, where you get to go through classroom training, and then you get a chance to get rotated to multiple departments, right? And then finally, once you've gone through the program, you then will graduate, and then you decide what you want to do. And what essentially I found that was important, or that I found that was very important for me at that stage, was really the first P was passion. All right. Um, what I found was very important during that early stage, or even in my entrepreneurial stage, was that you need to find what you are passionate about, because once you are passionate, then you have that intense desire and enthusiasm to do to do everything, to achieve what you want, all right? And very early in my career, I've always wanted to become a trainer. Why? Because when on my first day in my orientation program, I saw this lady who was up there, who was actually conducting the training, and I was looking at her and I was telling myself, one day I'm going to be like her. Okay. And primarily not so much of because I saw that she was enjoying what she was doing, and I found that I think I can do this. All right. And that creates that passion. And it's the same thing when I went into my entrepreneurship journey, when I started my company. Throughout my 20 years of corporate experience, I found what I wanted to do, and that was very much in the areas of creating impact for organizations. All right, I wanted to add value to the organization. I wanted to look at customer experience as the key agenda for organization to achieve uh, uh, sustainable business model. All right, so that's how I started my company as a consulting, and my role was really to set up to create impact for organizations, in terms of, going into digital transformation, business transformation stuff. And I find that I enjoy doing this a lot, because it not only just impact the people, but it impacts the organization and business results. And that's really what keeps me going. And every day there's 25 hours a day, and in a year you got 366 days in a year. So that's really what drives what I do. People always says that, hey, you don't seem to be very tired, you seems to be very energetic and all that. But it is really so much as if you find joy in doing what you're doing, you find that you're always on sixth gear doing. You find joy, and you don't have to kind of wake up and say, oh, it's another day. It's like dragging yourself out of the bed. But and that's really the first thing that I found essentially drives my attitude. Okay, because if I have passion, then my attitude, it's one that is of enthusiasm. Whatever is right in front of me, I will look at it as, why not try it? All right, it's a new thing. Maybe it's going to get me where I want to do, what I want to do in a faster way. So it's about being creative. It's about being, exploratory, in whatever that I do, is being bold in that sense. All right. So that passions, that burning desire, essentially it's important, because that drives the positiveness in you. And that's really one component of what we mean by attitude in this case here. Now, the second P, of course, it's just as important as passion. It's purpose. All right. You need to have a sense of purpose, a sense of where you are heading. And I was very clear in my early stage of my career in the corporate world, is that I want to be a facilitator. I want to be a trainer. I want to be, as we go through the corporate career, every stage of your career, you find that your purpose changes, right? And you came to a stage, it's like, okay, one day I just woke up and I tell myself, it's that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to make impact not only to myself, I'm going to make impact on other people, right? So the purpose gives you that sense of determination, because you know that you're going to get there, all right? And this drives you, because you may have a lot of passion, but if you don't know where you're heading, also no point. All right. So the passion must drive towards a purpose. And you have to ask yourself, what is that purpose? And if my purpose is something like, in my case, my purpose is really to create impact on others. All right. And I'm very clear. And when I talk about creating impact, it could mean many things throughout my own personal journey. When I started in my earlier years, my impact was to become a dutiful daughter, all right, to my parents. Whatever they say, I will obey, all right. So I want to make sure that I create impact, to make sure that I am a good daughter, all right. And then when I started to, when I got married, I have to make sure that I'm a dutiful wife, and then to my kids, that is as a mother, to my mother-in-law, to my mom, and to my parents. So every stage of the life, you will have different purpose of creating impact in my case. But as I begin to go into the workforce, my impact was very much to ensure that I give my best to in my work. All right, that's creating impact to my manager, creating impact to the organization, to make sure that I'm value adding to the organization. But now that I am an entrepreneur, a business owner, my impact is really around my key stakeholders. And my number one key stakeholders is the employees of the organization. All right, I have to make sure that they are protected. I have to make sure, like in the COVID situation in year 2020, everybody was losing jobs. All right. And what came into my mind at the very onset when MCO came in, the first MCO came in, what came into my mind was I need to protect the jobs of my people. Right. And I was fortunate because not only was I able to protect the jobs of my people, we were able to scale by 150% in terms of our headcount. We managed to hire another 250 people to join the organization. So that's really what drives the purpose when we talked about impact in my situation. So we have passion, because passion gives you that burning desire towards a purpose, which is the goal, your ultimate goal. And as we've said, your purpose evolves as we, progress in our personal life journey. But we've always said that the third P is just as important, all right? Perseverance, it's so important as we embark on our personal life journey, all right? Because it's about persistency in doing something despite difficulty or delaying in achieving success. And this is really, again, a mindset and attitude, all right? Because do we just give up when after the first try? Do we give up after the second try? Or do I persist and continue to do this so that I will be able to achieve success in a long-term basis itself here, right? And I can connect again to many occasions in my job, in a corporate world, whereby I failed, but what is important is I've made mistakes, but it's important that you learn from the mistakes and make sure that you do not repeat those mistakes, right? And if you try the first time, new skills is obviously it's never easy. So the first time it's going to be difficult. The second time is going to be much easier, and then to a stage where it becomes, a skill that you are able to perform without having to think about it. So perseverance, it's really about, going for it, despite achieving, getting a lot of obstacles along the way. And this uh, mindset becomes so important for me in my entrepreneurial years now. As a business owner, we find that, running a business is never easy. All right. I've been in business for the last 16 years, and the earlier years, it's like when you're starting out, you kind of put all your savings into the business. All right, you practically don't get any salaries, and the first thing is when you get a project, when money comes in, the first people that gets paid is your employees, right? And you come to a stage, you realize that, hey, are you working for your employees, or are you actually running a business? So that is a very challenging moments, in entrepreneurship itself here. And as you begin to grow your business, it's the same thing. Cash flow then becomes a concern, because it's like, oh, for all you know, it's already payday. And then after a few weeks, and you realize, hey, is another payday coming, you know, and so perseverance to make sure that you overcome your you know, challenges becomes very important. All right. And likewise, we have grown now to a company size which is about 45 million in terms of revenue for myself. And it's not easy. You know, getting funding to support my growth, it's very challenging. We are currently in a fundraising situation. We have spoke to numerous investors. They keep on asking us so many questions. You know, they challenge our numbers. You know, they challenge our business. But will all these things stop me from growing? No, because I know what is my purpose. I know what is my end goal, which is really to take the company to an IPO. All right. And I know that I still have that passion, because my passion is what is, you know, giving me that enthusiasm and the stamina to get there itself. So understanding that life is never going to be a bed of roses. There are going to be challenges. So we must persevere, all right, in order for us to get there. All right. So take this as just bumps along the way. All right. It's just like you traveling in a road, like in Malaysia, banyak bumps, yeah. So a lot of potholes and all that, right? So, but those are it will happen in your life, because you know it's never going to be a smooth journey, but surely we're going to get there if we persevere. All right. And that's where the the fourth P is really about persistency, right? Persistency is the fact of continuing in an opinion or course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition, right? So perseverance, it's to get there, but persistency, it's really about, you know, not losing that energy, all right, to get what you want, is it? Because you may give up along the way, but what we're saying is, what if I give up and it's just one more step, and that's where I'll be able to achieve the goals. So persistency, it's really what is you know, keep you going, and it's the same thing in the corporate world, right? We persevere because we cannot get you know, there are a lot of obstacles in a way for me to complete the project. But if I were to continue and persist doing what I'm gonna do to overcome those obstacles, I'm gonna get there, right? Because then that relates back to the last P, which is really about patience. Okay, we are generally, as human beings, very impatient. All right, it's like you want today, you come in, like a lot of interviews that we do, we ask ourselves, how do you see yourself in the next 3 years or 5 years, and they tell you, oh, I want to be in your position. Okay. So you need to be patient, um, because everything happens for a purpose. All right. So if it's not there, that means it's not meant to for you to get it then. All right. But when it is time, you will know it is your time in this case. Yeah. So what is really important is, if I continue to uh, be very clear about my purpose and that burning desire to achieve what I want to do, all right, and overcoming obstacles, you know, throughout that journey, and then developing that patience to ensure that if I were to do this repeatedly and persist this, I'm going to surely going to get there. I may not get it now, maybe 1 month down the road, maybe 2 months down the road, or 3 months down the road. All right. But you know, it is really important to be able to develop that patience as well. So this represents, from my perspective, the mindset of what attitude essentially is important. These are the things that I felt are relevant even for me at this point of time. And that's the reasons why I, you know, I'm able to achieve what I want to achieve in this time frame. There's much more that I want to do, so I'm just being guided by the making sure that I have the right attitude, to look at situations, and things in a positive light. All right. And people always says, in times of COVID, it's bad times. All right. But for brand, from my company, last year, 2020, is our record year in terms of revenue, in terms of headcounts. So it's either you just let the situation manage you, or what Kirin was mentioning, you can take control of the situation. You can manage it, because if you don't manage the situation is going to manage you. Right? So you have to take charge. You have to take control. And we have proven ourselves in 2020, despite the pandemic. We came out, we excelled, we thrived. And that's really what individuals like us can do, outperform anyone, if you adopt that right attitude with the aptitude, the skills, that gives you the winning equation for success. All right. So with that, that concludes my session. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So let me just pull down the slide so that we can get to see each other. Any comments?
All right, thank you, Dato. Yes, there's a lot of questions. Let's go through one by one. Yeah, should I read it for
Yeah.
you? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll read it for you. So the first
Okay.
question from Ng Long Fu, he asked,
Okay.
the decisions made by us can show what our character and behavior? Question mark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where is that questions? Okay, the decisions made by us can show what our character and behavior. Well, what we're saying here is this, that yes, all right, in a way, because you see, every time when we are in a crossroad, all right, you are expected to make a decision. Should I take this job A or should I take job B? All right. So if I have made a decision and I say, okay, I'm going to take job B. Okay, so then you pursue and ensure that you leverage on and ensure that you do a good job in job B. All right. And then you excel in job B, but then no regrets for not taking job B, job A, in that sense. All right. So the decisions that we make shows the character, because why? Either you have a lot of information, how you make the decision. It's what we mean by building your characters and behavior. One person will say, oh, because my friends are all there, right? So I join up. Or did you look at, making a very learned decision? And when we talk about a learned decision, means it's, did I looked at the organization, what actually the organization is all about? Do I looked at, find out a little bit more about what they do? Is the job that they offer in line with my purpose? Is this what I want to do? Is it a job that I will be able to put all my 110, 20% into the job because I'm passionate about the job? So all these things requires you to think, all right? And when that thought process is happening, that builds your character, all right? That builds your behavior. One is like, ayah, jadilah, dapat job, already go. Or should I be looking at, using some intelligence to help you, to guide you in making certain decisions? Yeah.
Yep, good
Yeah.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Shirley asked this question, but very useful for the rest. She's asking,
Yeah.
is there a book or resource on personal branding that you would recommend? A book or resource?
I don't have one at this point, but there are many. If you search online, there are certainly many writers who can actually give you some insights into this. So I don't have one at this point, unfortunately. But let me come back to you on this if I do come across any at this point. Yeah. But my book is coming out, so wait for that.
We'll wait for
Yeah,
that then.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think somehow I had an insight. You have asked that question, and then right after I typed the question, you mentioned about a book that is coming out. So I was like,
Really? Okay.
I
I
got
read
every
you.
nomination already.
Yeah. I read you. I read you,
It's a
Shirley.
calling.
Yeah.
Maybe you should launch it at our RYLA.
Yeah.
And Shirley also asked, what people come to mind as examples of stellar personal branders?
Okay. That was a good question. It's good to be able to ask some of you, when you looked at personal brands, who comes into your mind yourself?
For me, it's David Beckham.
Yeah, footballer,
Yeah, he
right?
used his skills, looks, and his
Yep.
wife's. No, I
Yep.
mean, she's a
Yeah.
celebrity, so he
Yeah.
tumpang glamour. Yeah?
Correct. But Donald Trump, is he a brand?
It's bad influence.
Who's that?
Is he a brand? He is a brand.
He
Yeah,
is
He
a
is a
brand, yeah.
brand. He
He is
is
a
a
brand.
brand. Okay, he's an example, but he's not a stellar personal brand. But he is a brand. It's just unfortunately he has, his brand is it's very unique. But for me, it's Oprah Winfrey. All right. She has a great example of again, going back to the women agenda. She has gone through many ups and downs in her early years of her life, and how she came out, rebounded back, and not only she has achieved greatness, and more importantly is now she's also giving back to the society. She for me, she is one person that we can really connect with. And she actually, if you ask me, Shirley, she has actually come up with some very, very good quotes of, personal branding about, success and all that. So it's good to be able to connect with her as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, along the same question, right? It's a
Yeah.
personal choice for us to have a person as a role model or a brander,
Mm.
right? For example,
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned he's not stellar. Yes, few of us will agree, or more of us will agree. But
Yeah.
we do know people who worshipped him. I
Yeah.
know a friend who's around my age or younger than me. He's in his mid 30s, and he worships Donald Trump's leadership skills, people management skills. Even though I can't find one people management that he can be proud of, but this guy is a young guy, but he worships
Yeah.
him. And then I saw a documentary in India. A young man worships Donald Trump's photograph, like how Hindu worships their god. You know,
Yeah.
so are they in the wrong path? We can't say that, right? What do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, we can't say this, because I would think that every individual do have its strength, does have its strengths as well. I'm not saying that, Donald Trump is a total boo-boo, right? He has certainly great strengths in terms of entrepreneurship. He shows great leadership in his own ways in managing the business that he had. So I guess if the person starts focusing on the strength of that individual, it's still good, right? But as we have said, sometimes again, when we make those decisions can be right, can be wrong in from the person's perspective. I mean, we can't say that the person has made the wrong decisions, right? Right.
Yeah, take the good
Yeah.
ones and learn. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Ng Long Fu asked another question. He said a lot of people in their 20s are still unsure about their purpose or goal in their lives.
Yeah.
How do we find our purpose, or they will find us? Very spiritual question.
Yeah. Very true. This is something that requires a lot of reading, talking to people. It's good if you're young, you are able to get some mentors, talk to mentors, coaches, who can guide you. I think when I was growing up, I never had all this, right? But now, if you look at in today's context, you guys are very, very fortunate, because there are just so many people out there who are trying to give back to the society. All right. Like myself, I coach a lot of people, all right, and so if you if, so it is important to be able to kind of find that mentor to help and guide you in terms of, having clarity, finding that clarity in terms of your purpose. All right. And that's really important. It's a good question, right? It keeps you start thinking now. So how do I do this? So if I don't have the skills, I don't know how to go about doing it. Either you talk to people, go online, research. There are many, people who has written some great books on this. I can recommend one great book, which, it has been published many years ago, but I've read this, it's like more than 20 years ago, but it's still very relevant. All right. Stephen Covey is one of those. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a great book to look at. Awakening of the Giant by Tony Robbins is also a fantastic, good book to help you to create that burning desire and ultimately find a purpose in life. And those are 2 books that you may consider. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And Haslina Hanif, she got a question. It's a
Right.
long one. She asked, what was that one most challenging situation that you have gone through in your corporate and entrepreneur journey? And how did you challenge back those negative thoughts with positive self-talk? So she want you to share with her, how did
Yeah.
you overcome that?
Yeah. Okay, I guess the recent situations that essentially I encountered is I did mention earlier that our company is growing, right? We have achieved our 45 million turnover last year, and this year we are on the route of achieving 60 million turnover, and the objective is to really take the company to IPO, right? So, but I can't do this on my own. You find that I need to scale the business, and when you scale the business, funding becomes a priority number one. All right, beyond of course having the right people, the right talents, you have the projects, right? So funding becomes a very number one priority for me at this point, right? But people don't give you free money, unfortunately. I mean, you really have to work extremely hard to be able to convince investors to part money to part their money, right? So if you talk to individual investors who are high net worth, it's probably much easier, because they say I need 1 million, then you kind of through network you may be able to get the money, right? But if you're talking about funding like 10 million, 30 million ringgit, then you need to work with institutional investors, right? So that institutional investors, their way of approach to funding organization growth companies like us, it's essentially going to be very different. Okay, so I've started this whole journey probably about 1 year, and it has been talking from one investor to another, and I still get no's. All right, or people say, okay, it's not the right time, okay, if I give you this much, can I have more dilution, can I have majority, so there are a lot of terms which are not favorable to the company at this point. So that is where the challenge is, like, okay, I still have a business to run, I have to keep the company going, but at the same time I need to think about 2 to 3 years ahead. So it has always been challenging, but I keep on telling myself that what is really important is that, who knows, the next person may say yes to me. All right, or and my CFO may be screaming, why this guy is asking so many questions, and I say, who knows, the fact that he's asking all these questions means he is interested. All right, so it's really about telling yourself that yes, yes, there are reasons why they have to ask those questions, because they need to ensure that they put in the money, the company, they're going to get back their ROI, all right, multiple times. But this requires a lot of interactions, a lot of patience, and sometimes when you're doing this is at the expense of your business growth. So I've been fortunate. that, I have a team that actually drives operations and keep things moving. So my focus then is really to continuously talk to people. All right. And I've talked to people, it's like, this one doesn't work. And the guy just walk away. It's like, hey, what happened, but it says, okay, never mind, his loss, but not my loss, right? So I think it's just telling yourself, it's like, okay, no big deal, then move on, go. The next one could be the one, right? So that keeps you going in this case.
Yep, good answer. So you're saying don't sit and cry, just move on.
Yeah, correct. It's the same thing, right? During the pandemic, in a COVID situation, so a lot of businesses, they shut down, they close, they're waiting for the subsidy, the government subsidy, the money is not coming in, they sit down, they, complaining, and business is no good and all that. But what we did differently is that, hey, we have to go on, because we have to make sure that our people is paid a salary. We have to make sure that we have the revenue. We have to make sure that we continue to grow the business. So again, it's two different mindset altogether.
All right.
Yeah.
Nur Sufia asked, how do you keep up with your passion when there's obstacles come along? Some people will get bored or give up when
Yeah.
there is a challenge that comes
Mm,
along.
yeah.
So how do you
Um,
keep up?
yeah. I guess again, it has a lot to do with your sense of purpose. Your purpose must be very strong. You must know what is at the end of that tunnel. And you must, yes, now we are seeing like it's total darkness, but you're very certain that as you keep on pursuing it, you will find that at the end of that tunnel, there will be a light in this case here. So that keeps you going. But if you don't have the light, you don't know what you are striving for, obviously, you were going to give up and say, okay, I try something else. And then you try, and then obstacles again, okay, you gonna drop it, and then I try something else. So you're always going to go back to ground zero, right? So instead of putting so much efforts into trying so many things, why don't you just take a hard stop and ask yourself, what exactly is it that you want? All right. And once you take that hard stop and internalize and ask yourself, what is it that is the ultimate purpose? What do you want in your life? And then you chart your steps, to achieve that. And recognizing there will be mountains, there will be hills, streams, rivers to cross, but you know that at the end of the day, you're going to achieve it.
Yeah, and there'll be crocodiles in the river, yeah?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All right, maybe this is the last question. Let's take the last one. Shali, she wants you to share with us your success story that elevated your company's performance during this pandemic period.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So basically, we as an entrepreneur, it is really very important for one to always think ahead, like plan like 2-3 years ahead. And we've been pretty fortunate, that even 2 years before the pandemic came in, we were very clear about our purpose. We were very clear about what we want to do. So it again goes back to your purpose, right? During that, when I started a company, or even 2 years back, I wanted to be the number one. I wanted to be, I want to achieve a company valuation of 300 million, for example. And to get that 300 million, I need to achieve 100 million of revenue in the next 2 to 3 years. So I was very clear about what I wanted, and I was very clear that I need an exit plan for my company. And when we talk about exit, means it's that it's IPO, so that we will exit as a company, so that the company goes big. So as a result of this, what really happens, therefore, 2 years ago, we embarked on what we call a digital transformation journey. And that digital transformation journey allows us to actually ensure that we have the third generation technology in place. We invested a lot in infrastructure, office space, all right? And of course, we hire some very good talents ahead of the game, right? So what happened was that when the pandemic hits us, we were fortunate again to have clients who were also growing. They accelerated their business. Those we had a client which is in the e-commerce space. We had a client that falls into the essential services. So both these clients grew. All right, I give you an example. We started with 30 in January 2020, 30 head count, 30 people doing the job. Now today, that account, we have 300 people doing a job in a span of just less than a year. Okay, simply because why? We had ready infrastructure, we had invested in our technology, we had capable people ahead of the game, right? So the minute when the client needed the the requirements, we were able to scale with the client. Okay, so that was what happens in terms of our operations. And how do we hire people? It was obviously what was important for us was because of our networking, right? A personal branding equates to also networking. You network with a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people in the associations, so that what has happened was during that time we were having difficulty in hiring people. So we just gave a call and find out which companies are the ones that is retrenching, and we says, do they have the skills with IT? If they have, okay, are you willing? Why don't you deploy these people to us? So it's again, networking allows us again to scale very easily. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That
It's a long story here,
long
Shirley.
story.
We'll take it offline.
We'll wait for your
Right.
book.
Yeah.
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 All
Yeah.
right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dato. Now I'd like to
Yeah.
invite our program coordinator, Shirley, for a word of thanks to our guest speaker today.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much, Dr. Munirah Looi. I think not only just the participants, but all of us also benefited from your sharing today. I like the fact that you dissected the personal branding topic, very nicely by first explaining to us. Giving us a very clear understanding what personal branding means, and it's not just the outlook of what we wear, or the amount of makeup we put on our face, but it's
Mm.
also from the inside out, your character building, mindset thinking. And then moving on to explain to us about aptitude versus attitude. And I have to agree, it's easier to train aptitude, but however, attitude, it takes a lot more effort. And
Right.
then lastly, sharing with us your 5 P's, which is really very relevant, from passion to purpose to perseverance to persistence, and finally patience. And also answering all the questions that have come in from the participants and also us. We thank you very much, because I'm very sure that this topic is going to benefit especially the participants of employability, because in the beginning we touched on CV building, and then we talked about telling your story, and now we are telling them about having that right attitude, the right approach, having a purpose, having to ask yourself, what is it that you really want? I think even it doesn't matter, you can be 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, even 60 years old. There are still people who do not know what they still want. So until and unless we understand that, then I guess our journey will not be mapped out, because we'll be like headless chickens running around. So thank you again, Dr. Munirah Looi. On behalf of the Rotary District 3300 Malaysia, I would like to convey to you our certificate of appreciation. Can I have the next slide? Yes, to Dato Munirah for your contribution towards our youth empowerment at the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards 2020-2021. This is the soft copy certificate, but the hard copy will be mailed to you with a special token from all of us. So with that, thank you again, Dato
Yep.
Munirah.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.